Good morning, DawgNation. I'm Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by ServPro, and we are having a great time. We're live today at the Surcheros in Alpharetta. We've had already a wonderful morning. I think this may be a new record for me. I had some queso this morning at about 8:45 a.m. That may be a new record for me as far as queso goes. But we're obviously here because Surcheros is a big part of what we do at DawgNation on game day. And as you're getting ready for tailgating parties and watch parties with friends here this football season, we want Surcheros to be fresh on top of mind for you on that. And so coming up over the course of our show today, we're going to talk about exactly why that should be the case and a special opportunity for you to win today, too. We're going to tell you about that on the show here today. That is all coming up. And, of course, in and around that, the same great experience here on our show that you've come to expect, including yesterday, I thought. Some really fun stuff from a Georgia player, one in particular that I thought gave us some great information yesterday about this team, this upcoming season. We'll dive into the words of Jordan Hall here coming up in just a little bit. For now, though, let's find out what's on your mind. Kind of the show before the show. We'll take your comments. We'll chat with you here, and we'll get ready for the program coming up after that. Starting here in the chat on DawgNation.com. DT says, good morning, BA. Have a loaded burrito. Don't think I won't, and don't think I won't be taking some home with me. We've already had a good time with that. And in fact, the friendly folks here at Surcheros were actually early this morning. They got here much earlier than they normally would on a regular day. So they've already had the burritos fired up and ready to go, and it's been fun watching all that come together. So, DT, you better believe that's the case. And by the way, if you're really anywhere near the Alpharetta area, we're on South Main Street here in Alpharetta. If you're anywhere near here, the store itself, the location opens up at 10:30. While we're doing the show, you can swing by, pop in. You can have some lunch. I'd love to hang out and talk some Georgia football with you for a few minutes. So if you're in and around Alpharetta, there is time for you to come over here and see us today. In fact, I hope that you will do that. Let's find out what's going on with everybody else. Matt Rucavina also says he'll take a cup of coffee and 2 huevos rancheros. Yeah, that's also a pretty good idea, too, I guess, Matt. Pretty funny. Garrison Tucker says, does Nate Frazier have a 25-yard-plus run on Saturday? And, Garrison, that's one of the things that I love about our chat is that sometimes we get into topics like that, which I think tell a pretty good story about Georgia for the upcoming season. This is one of those things that in recent years – we just haven't seen as much from Georgia. The explosive runs, the long big gainers, and if Georgia is going to be, as an improved running team this year, well, obviously explosive runs are a great way to make that happen. So I'm going to say yes. Now, admittedly, that's based on more wishful thinking than anything, but I do think that for Georgia to be improved like it wants to be with its rushing attack, you just need to see more big gains. You need to see blocking down the field that creates the big gain. The would-be 5-yard run gets turned into a 7, 8, 9, or 10-yard run. And then because of what the running back's able to do, then it becomes maybe a 15, 20-yard run because of making a tackler miss, making something happen in space. I think you're zeroing in on what could be a really important issue for Georgia. I think that's right. Low Country Dog says he's a fan of Syracuse this weekend. He's hoping for a win from Coach Fran Brown against Tennessee. Yeah, that would be fun. And I think we've all been really impressed with what Fran Brown has been able to do as Syracuse coach. Pretty quickly, he's gone from position coach at UGA to pretty respected coach. Obviously, Syracuse was one of the surprise teams in the ACC a year ago. It would not be unimaginable, for instance, if they could at least keep it close against Tennessee on Saturday, maybe have a chance to get that win. Obviously, Tennessee's breaking in a new quarterback. There are a lot of new look aspects to Tennessee. So, yeah, looking in closely at the Vols and the orange on Saturday, the other orange, not just the Tennessee orange, I think that's probably about right. DT says he's glad to know that there's a Surcheros in Alpharetta. I'll get my daughter to bring some on her next visit to Big Canoe. Nothing but deer and turkeys around here. Yeah. So come to Alpharetta, get your Surcheros, and you can have that catered and delivered out there to you in Big Canoe and enjoy that. I think that sounds like a pretty good idea, DT, and I appreciate you weighing in on that too. I think that's great. Randy Hall asked about our game this Friday. So on high school football on Friday, we've got North Gwinnett hosting Colquitt County. This is going to be one of our better games, I think, of the year. We had a really good game this past Friday with Woodward Academy in Collins Hill, and just down the road from Collins Hill is North Gwinnett. They'll play host this weekend as Colquitt County, one of the great powers in South Georgia, travels all the way up north to be a part of that here this weekend. Always fun when a South Georgia team and a Metro Atlanta team kind of do battle with each other, and that's what's going to happen here this weekend. We're very excited about that. Let me also get some comments on YouTube for a moment. Live here from the Surcheros in Alpharetta today. Stick D says, what about Georgia football can you see and or hear that grabs your emotions and brings a tear to your eye? So I'll give you a couple of those things. One of them starts before you get in the stadium. When you drive on campus for the first time and you get parked and you start to make that walk, there are a few smells in the air that I just really associate with Georgia football. It's the charcoal on the grill, and sometimes there's a little kerosene that gets used to make the fire burn a little brighter. Now, I know some of y'all grill masters don't like using kerosene on your grill because you think it tastes funny, but it creates a really recognizable smell as you're walking across the stadium. It makes me think about Georgia football. Admittedly, there's a little bourbon in the air sometimes, too, that makes me think of that Georgia football pregame smell. There's the different genres of music. You know, this tailgate's playing some country, and this tailgate's playing some rock. Maybe got a little hip-hop over here. Just got a little mixture of stuff, classic, new stuff. It's that bleed over of the different styles of music, the different artists. That makes me think of Georgia football. And for people that go to the games, there's all kinds of different vantage points that you watch the game from. And I think a lot of this is depending on where you sit. But I tell you one thing I love. If you come down at the bottom, and if you come through the west end zone concourse, kind of behind the concession stand there, when you walk through that tunnel, and then as you kind of go through it, all of a sudden it's the entirety of the stadium, and you just see the expanse of it. It almost feels as if you're a player coming through the tunnel. That's one of those things I try to do, and it makes it feel like Georgia football for me. And then after the day is done, I'll give you one final one. I always try to make a point to, when we leave the UGA bookstore where we have our DawgNation postgame show, and when I get ready to walk back to my car, even if I've got people with me, sometimes some of my work colleagues will be with me or my family will be with me, we'll stop on the bridge, we'll look across, and we'll see from the bridge the big fullness of Sanford Stadium, now empty, no fans, lights typically still on. And you just look at that and you realize that in some form or fashion, you've been looking at that image for my entire life. I told you all yesterday on the show, my first memory of coming to a Georgia season opener was in 1986. I don't know if that was my first season opener. It's just the first that I remembered. And returning to the same spot throughout my entire life, and being a young kid doing that with my dad and my grandfather, and now doing that as a dad with my kids who look up to me the same way I once looked up to the men in my family. It's kind of an overwhelming feeling. And it's something that I just experience around this same time every year. I hope many of you get a chance to have those same experiences. I think that's a great question. We'll get a couple of others here. Jerry Dog fan mentioning Jay Lamar, on TV on Friday, hoping to get a chance to showcase to the Georgia fans who'll tune in what Jay Lamar is all about from Colquitt County. That's going to be a lot of fun. Wyatt Fielden also asking what's in my Surcheros cup today. You'll be happy to know, perfect symmetry. I do have some Dr. Pepper in the cup today. Before it's done, Surcheros, they're well known. If you come here in store, you can enjoy a margarita. Who knows? Before it's done, we may have something like that going on. But for now, it's a little Dr. Pepper coming out of the Surcheros cup. So we love that about our friends at Surcheros. Okay, so we're live here, Surcheros in Alpharetta, South 91 Main Street in Alpharetta. Fun show coming up. Let me tell you all about it. Let's get ready to fire up that animation. Good morning, Dawg Nation. I'm Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by ServPro and live at the Surcheros in Alpharetta. Surcheros got some great stuff in store for you for all of your game day watching and tailgate party needs, and today we're going to talk about a lot of that, including how you can win a big giveaway to have a game watching party catered, I should say, and the food supplied by our friends at Surcheros. We'll tell you more about that big giveaway opportunity today on the show. We're really happy to have the folks from Surcheros playing host for us today. We've already had a great time this morning and more fun stuff planned throughout the show here today. Now, speaking of that, we've also got some great Georgia football conversation coming for you here today, too. In fact, special guest with us, the former Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm. Jake has told us plenty of interesting things in the past about what it's like getting locked in for a season opener and why games like the one that Georgia's going to play against Marshall on Saturday, there's still plenty of butterflies in the stomach for something like that, a chance to go out and prove on TV and to fans exactly what you've been working on behind the scenes. Jake Fromm will tell us today what that feels like. We also heard some really fun and entertaining stuff from a Georgia player yesterday. We'll share that with you as the Dawgs put their finishing touches on their preparations. And Jordan Hall, the Georgia player that I just mentioned, going to give us some interesting insight about two different position groups that we can expect to maybe start to see starting on Saturday. A lot of fun, plenty of great stuff in store. We're glad to have you with us for. We're live today at Surcheros in Alpharetta. It is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by ServPro. And it begins right now.
Today's episode of DawgNation Daily is brought to you by ServPro. Cleaning, restoration, construction.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
So one of the things that we know, and by the way, if you're watching on video, you recognize we're live today at the Surcheros in Alpharetta. Big giveaway coming from them before we're done today. We'll tell you more about that, your chance to win. Also, if you're in the area as we broadcast live, the doors open here around 10:30 this morning. So if you want to stop by Surcheros and have some lunch and hang out with us, you've got a great chance to do that here in Alpharetta, South Main Street in Alpharetta. We'd love to have you come by and be with us for that. We have our mind as well on the season kickoff for Georgia coming up on Saturday. And one of the things that we know, one of those position groups that's very much in the spotlight for Georgia is the defensive line. Kirby Smart has spoken over and over about the need to be better up front defensively and to, for instance, be better at stopping the run. That was a statistical area in which Georgia a season ago was not as good as it could have been. And if Georgia wants to take steps as a team to be better this season, taking that step with the defensive line, of course, is a big part of all of that. So yesterday, when Kirby Smart spoke to kick off the week and lead us into the season opener against Marshall on Saturday, it should not be a surprise that one of the topics that came up in that discussion was the Georgia defensive line, what you want to see from them. They've been working behind closed doors. They've been trading paint with the Georgia offensive line during scrimmages and during practice. But this upcoming week, they get a chance to now lay some licks on another team in a different color jersey wearing a different helmet. And what can be learned about Georgia and its defensive line in an actual game setting as opposed to just practice, well, this is what Kirby Smart said about that when he spoke to reporters yesterday.
I don't think you necessarily learn more in a game with those guys. I get to see them in action. It's their action in a practice is very similar to their action in a game, where that might be different for a receiver or a defensive back who has to tackle or not. These guys, they're going to war every day. So striking blocks, getting off blocks, running the ball. I mean, who you are is on your tape. That's your resume. It speaks for itself. We show our guys every day in the team meeting, this is who you are, because this is what you put on tape, especially at the defensive line and offensive line positions. So I don't expect it to go out in the game and change all of a sudden. Like the guys with good characteristics, good habits in practice, it'll show up that way in the game. So what I see today will be similar to what I get an opportunity to see Saturday. And we'll measure both those, and we'll keep advancing and trying to get more guys to play winning football.
So when you hear Kirby Smart there and you're talking about making big improvements with the defensive line and that group being as good as it needs to be this upcoming season, I think one of the key components towards making that happen is obviously going to center around some of the veteran defensive linemen who've been here. Not to say that you aren't looking for a major contribution from younger players. We've talked a lot about J.J. Hanna, Elijah Griffin's a former 5-star. But the bedrock foundation of this defensive line is going to be the veteran players who've been here. A name we've talked about a lot this offseason is someone like Christian Miller. Of course, he's incredibly important. Another name that we would say the same thing about is Jordan Hall. Hall, a year ago, battled injury for almost the entire season. But that shouldn't cause any Georgia fan to forget that prior to that, he was viewed as one of the more promising prospects on this roster. And now that Jordan Hall has returned from that injury, the same potential and the anticipation for fulfilling that potential that once existed around Hall, we believe that should be just as true now as it ever was. So as the conversation is ongoing about what Georgia can be with its defensive line, it also should not be a surprise that Jordan Hall's name comes up quite prominently in that. And when Kirby Smart spoke yesterday, he also spoke about Jordan Hall. This is what Kirby Smart said about Hall.
Yeah, his resiliency pops out at me when we talk about our DNA traits. One of them is always that he embodies that. It was this time last year that we found out he had a tibia basically fracture and had to put a rod in. And then right after we got a rod put in his lower leg, he found out he had to have one in the other leg. So it really set him back. And it wasn't just the injury that set him back. It was the combination of both those happening at one time. You can usually get by with one leg maybe not being 100%, but when you're dealing with both legs, he deals with a lot of pressure and force. When you play that position, you're taking on two guys, 25% of your snaps. So there's a lot of pressure on those double teams. And Jordan's just number one, he's bright. Number two, he cares. He's passionate, and he plays really hard.
So all of that so true about Kirby Smart when it comes to Jordan Hall. And yet the other thing about Jordan Hall that I think is worth mentioning off the top of the show for us today is, in addition to hearing Kirby Smart talk about Jordan Hall yesterday from Athens, we also got to hear from Jordan Hall. And as player interviews go, this was among the more entertaining player interviews I think we've heard in quite some time. Now, it was also, from a football standpoint, pretty poignant and on the mark, too. Hall clearly taking ownership for what his position group needs to do this season. But over the course of our time together, a couple of, I think, interesting pieces of insight, including insight into one position group on the other side of the ball today from Jordan Hall that you're going to really like. Let me start with this, though. As we have said, defensive line very much in the spotlight. That group wants to be better. Yesterday from Athens, the guy that Kirby Smart just talked about, Jordan Hall, in his own words, talking about how his group this year can be better and hold up what we think of as the true standard for Georgia along the defensive line. This is Jordan Hall.
Personally, when I feel like, the standard has always been the standard. Stopping the run is always the biggest thing. So that's not something we was pretty good at last year. And we all know that, We want to be better at doing that. But I think the mindset is just sending the message to everybody, like making sure that we know that we're the Georgia defensive line. We're going to try to come in and stop the run, be physically imposing, and then play to our standard. But I don't think there's no extra pressure, no weight that it wasn't already on us that, it would be different from like last year or this year or the 10 years before now. So it's the same thing, just going out there and playing hard and having fun. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to worry about, just making sure we go out there, execute, have fun, and do our job. That's all.
So I think a lot of that's very well said. I think Hall is a great spokesman for this team. And when you're listening to him yesterday, and some of what he says is funny, some of what he says is poignant, all of it on the mark. At one point in time, Hall was asked about the personality he possesses and how this coincides with other Georgia defensive linemen over the years. And what I like about this is, and this comes across as self-serving, but we have also talked about this before, that if you look at a real common trait that the best Georgia teams have had in the Kirby Smart era, there are these really big personalities on the defensive line. I don't know why it is that Georgia, with its defensive line, important position on the field, And yet, in addition to that, some of the biggest, most jovial, entertaining personalities on the Georgia roster also seem to come from the defensive line. This is something true going back to Jordan Davis, continuing now with Jordan Hall. In between that, there have been Mercier Stackhouse, Warren Brinson, just a lot of entertaining players with humorous points of view, gregarious personalities when it comes to the Georgia defensive line. That is a common trait that very good Georgia teams seem to share. Jordan Hall, it's interesting for me to note this, also seems to have noticed this too, and in true Jordan Hall fashion, gave an explanation yesterday for why he thinks that's the case. This is Hall once again.
Coach Scott recruits a lot of interesting people, so that's a good thing, a good trait of Coach Scott, knowing how to get good people into a room. And, I feel like that's something that'll be going on for years. I mean, as long as you have good energy around a bunch of good players, I feel like it's contagious, and that spreads throughout the team. So you look at all the best teams that Georgia's had, you had personalities on the D-line. So going back to the 21 team, you got Jordan Davis, who was a big, jolly, great guy, but on the field, it was like a monster, So it just depends on the group, but I feel like that's something that we always try to push and is having fun and being good guys.
So coming up in a couple of seconds, I'm going to give you an example of Hall showcasing this personality a little bit more. He went into far more detail talking about one Georgia position group. It's a position group that's on your mind. He went into far more detail talking about that position group than certainly Kirby Smart would ever do, and most of the other Georgia players, they probably wouldn't do this either. So if you want to see this personality from Hall on display, coming up in a couple of seconds, I'll give you a chance to see that in all of its glory. But before I get to that, let me sum this part of the conversation up. Here is something we all, I think, intuitively understand whether we played the game or not. Football is really hard. The grind that Georgia goes through with its fall camp, its practices, its bloody Tuesdays, it's just really arduous. You better have some good dudes in the locker room to put everybody in a better mood. Otherwise, you'll just never make it through a season. That Georgia speaks frequently about its sense of connection, the way in which players get along with each other. They enjoy spending time together. That's something that seems to be a hallmark of Georgia's success. That seems to matter. And it's personalities like Jordan Hall that give you a focal point for all of that to occur. They give you a meeting point for the players to congregate around. That you better have good leaders with attractive personalities that draw players closer to them. And it's almost an extra bonus if you can get players like that coming from a position of need. Defensive line, one of the most important position groups for any football team. So if your key leaders, if your most vocal guys, if your most, just to say it this way, popular players are defensive linemen, I think you probably get an added boost from that too. And Georgia seems to get a lot vocally from guys like Christian Miller and Jordan Hall, but they also get a lot, we hope, from these guys on the field here too. So much about the Georgia success this season going to be dependent on where this defensive line can take them. Well, based on what we heard yesterday and based on what we've been hearing over the course of the last few weeks, these Georgia defensive linemen are ready to lead the way along that journey. My name's Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by ServPro. We're live here at the Surcheros in Alpharetta, and we're happy that you're with us. It's live on video 10 a.m. In fact, if you're watching us live right now and you're anywhere around the Alpharetta area, or you can get over here, we're going to be hanging out for a little bit. The doors open at 10:30. You can stop by. You can have some lunch with us, a little bit of an early lunch. You can watch the show while we're doing it. We'll talk some Georgia football with you after it's over with. We're just going to hang out and be relaxed with each other a bit. If you're in the area, we'd love to have you come by. What a great day to do all of that. If you're on demand listening radio podcast, we're happy you're here and happy you're a part of that too. We love you being a part of the program. And we also give a thanks to our friends at ServPro who make all of this possible. And our friends at ServPro are ready to serve you in a time of need. Let's face it, a real thing that can happen to you happens to people I know all the time. You think about fire damage, water intrusion. We're in that time of year in which weather-related catastrophes are a thing that happens. And if something like this strikes your home or property that you own, think about a warehouse or maybe you have rental property. If you're in a situation like that, the mess that can be created is a huge problem. You want it cleaned up. Your wish would be that it could be put back together like it never even happened. Well, that's what our friends at ServPro can do for you. They can get it cleaned up. They can get it restored to its previous condition. That's when we call them restoration specialists. That's what ServPro is all about. Plus, each ServPro franchise independently owned and operated. That means when you do business with ServPro, you're doing business with folks that have a real vested interest in a satisfactory outcome for you, just like you have for yourself. So I want you to find them online. It is ServPro.com. That is SERV, ServPro.com. You can find out a lot more about that. We're so happy to have ServPro as a part of DawgNation Daily here today. Now, let me give you a couple of program notes before we get ready to move on here. First of all, it is Jake Fromm coming up in just a few minutes. Jake almost always joins us on Tuesday. Jake today going to join us a little earlier in the show. Happy to be able to do that. Our friend Connor Raleigh taking a little bit of kind of last-minute vacation before the season begins. So in that spirit, we'll bring on Jake Fromm today just a little bit earlier than we sometimes do. I also want to tell you that we're live here today, Surcheros in Alpharetta. As I've already invited, please come by to see us. Also, keep in mind that for a good number of years now, Surcheros has been a big part of DawgNation on game day. And I want you to think about Surcheros for your own game day experience this fall, whether that be a tailgate around Athens before the game or you bringing friends over to watch the game. If you've got a group of folks getting together, the friendly, fresh Mexican food that Surcheros is famous for, that's exactly what you ought to be thinking about to feed all the hungry folks in your life there. The tacos, the burritos, the bowls, the quesadillas, all of that, the same great food that you enjoy when you come here and eat at Surcheros, we're located today, that can be picked up and taken to your tailgate party or delivered to your home in some cases. That can be your experience. And if you want happy folks watching the game, the outcome, well, I can't do anything about that for you. Everybody enjoying the food and making sure they all leave well-fed and enjoying some great tasting fresh food. Well, with Surcheros in charge of that, I can promise you're going to be really happy with all of that. So you can check it on the website. It's Surcheros.com. That's Surcheros, Surcheros.com. There are more than 40 locations here in Georgia around the southeast, so you're going to find a Surcheros location near you, and you can use that as a great resource for planning all your game day watching, tailgate party needs. Surcheros, a big part of our DawgNation game day, and they can be and should be a big part of your game day experience, whether it's a game watching party, a tailgate, or anything else. In fact, I want you to stay tuned in the weeks to come. We've got a big giveaway opportunity that we're going to be telling you all about coming up in the next few weeks. So listen closely in this space. You'll be hearing a lot more about that then. Okay, let me say one more thing, then we're going to move on. Don't forget, on Thursday, I'm going to be live at Authentic Brewing with our friends at the Red and Black, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, for the big season kickoff party. That's me. That's Mark Schlabach from ESPN, Mr. College Football Tony Barnhart. David Pollock's going to be there too. Tickets are $25. All proceeds benefit the Red and Black, the student newspaper of the University of Georgia, very famous student newspaper. So on behalf of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, I am moderating this event. I've been invited to do that. It's going to be a great experience. If you go to bit.ly/DawgNation, or I should say /DawgNation, that's what you call a bit.ly link. It's just a short link to get there. It's bit.ly/DawgNation. You can get your tickets for our big season kickoff event with the Red and Black on Thursday. Mark Schlabach, David Pollock, Tony Barnhart, everyone going to be there. I'm moderating the event. It's at Authentic Brewing. I hope to be able to see you there. It's going to be a great time. So reach out to me if you got any questions, but I hope to be able to see you there for that. Okay, before we get Jake Fromm, fun conversation coming up with him, let's also get ready to go around the doghouse today, poured by our friends at Mercier Orchards Hard Cider. And I told you a little earlier that we're going to look a little closer at one position group. And sometimes when you ask Kirby Smart about a position group, you don't quite get the answer that you're looking for, especially game week. Smart's kind of locked in. He's not revealing very many secrets, not exactly a fountain of secrets and releasing all kinds of information under normal circumstances anyway. there's even less of that on a game week. And so yesterday when Kirby Smart was asked about, hey, tell me about your rotation at running back and tell me about how that's shaking out. What's the competition like? We know about Nate Frazier, but what about the other guys? Well, Smart was, in very classic Kirby Smart fashion, speaking in a lot of simple generalities, not getting very specific, complimentary of the group overall, but pretty flimsy and short on details. This is Kirby Smart when he was asked about the Georgia running backs.
Great group, man. Group by committee. They've worked really hard. They're going to continue to work. They all have different traits with size, speed, protection, catch the ball out of the backfield. I mean, you're looking for a complete back that can do them all. We've got a good group that's really been competitive, and I look forward to seeing all those guys go out and play.
So listen, don't get me wrong. I'm glad it's a good group. I'm glad that Kirby Smart's complimentary of it. Of course, that's good news. That's what Georgia fans want. But I think I speak on behalf of all Georgia fans when I say, even if we've kind of come to expect not a lot of information from Kirby Smart this time of year on topics such as that, we'd kind of like a little bit more, right? If you could find out, what's the pecking order be? What's the rotation going to be? What do these various running backs bring to the table that are different from each other? If you could know that, you'd want to, wouldn't you? And sometimes where Kirby Smart is not exactly all that prone to want to speak in specifics, every now and then you can get a Georgia player to be much more specific and much more candid, and sometimes without beating around the bush or without talking around the subject, they'll just get right to the heart of the matter. Well, we told you a couple of minutes ago that Jordan Hall's personality was on full display yesterday, and he was willing to go into all kinds of subjects. One of those was the Georgia running backs. Kirby Smart says, yeah, they're all good. We're happy. It's a competition. We're dividing up the playing time. We feel very good about that. But specifically, Jordan Hall gave you a bit of a note on all of the various guys who were a part of that competition. This is really entertaining. I would say it's also informative. This is Jordan Hall yesterday on the running backs.
Explosive. I mean, all of them explosive, but like Nate is one of the more he's like lightning in a bottle. You know what I'm saying? Really jittery. I see the way he plays. He's like a mouse, like running away from a mousetrap, just like that all the time. You feel me? So he run like that, move like that, but he's like more explosive. Chauncey's one of those one cut and might give you a move, but he's really explosive as well. And Dwight, Lil Nut, as we call him, you know what I'm saying? Lil Nut, he's lightning fast, you know what I'm saying? You get him out in open space, you probably not going to catch him 10 times out of 10. So and then Rod and Josh are just big physically imposing running backs, you know? So it's a lot of different flavors of things that you can get from all of our running backs. But obviously, they are great players, you know what I'm saying? And they do a great job of embodying everything that Coach Crawford teaches them. And I'm forgetting about the third down specialist, Cass Jones, our receiving back. He's also, he's downhill running too. I feel like the one thing Cass doesn't get a lot of credit for is his pass protection. He's great in pass protection, and he's kind of strong for his size, you know. So I feel like that's a little bit of everything that we get from all our running backs.
I mean, that's pretty interesting, right? Pretty detailed description of each of those backs from Jordan Hall. It's one of the reasons why his press conference yesterday was so well received. I have to admit, I have a temptation to read too much into things. There is part of me that wants to read into the order in which Hall just mentioned those backs. Nate Frazier first, then Chauncey Bowen second, then Dwight Phillips third, before getting to the new transfer from Illinois and Roderick Robinson, Josh McCray and Roderick Robinson. Makes you wonder, is that the pecking order which we might see these running backs on Saturday? Probably not exactly so, because one of the names that Hall forgot to mention, and you can understand he's speaking off the cuff, he's not reading from notes, he's just speaking off the cuff the way we do on the show, so he forgets to mention Bo Walker. We have every reason to believe that Walker is very much a part of the running back rotation. Hall just forgets to mention him because he's just speaking off the top of his head extemporaneously, so we won't read too much into the order in which Hall mentioned those names. It was my first temptation to want to do that, but when you don't hear Walker, you're left to conclude maybe that's not quite the case. But it's a far more detailed answer than the one that Kirby Smart gave, and therefore I think more entertaining and informative for fans. Either way, though, the hope is that Georgia's ready to have success with its running backs no matter who is out there. And one of the running backs that Hall just mentioned, Cash Jones, also spoke to the media yesterday, and he said he believes that he and his teammates are ready to do just that. This is Cash Jones.
We have a lot of depth. I feel very confident in everybody that we put in. We're going to give a lot of defenses trouble this year. I'm really proud of how everybody worked in the summer and in the fall, and they've done a really good job so far.
So you love to hear that. Cash Jones saying going to be a problem for opposing defenses this year. Boy, I hope so. Georgia gets a chance to put that on display on Saturday, and that's around the Doghouse. Poured today by our friends at Mercier Orchards Hard Cider. Fun new sponsor, and the response to Mercier Orchards Hard Cider thus far has been amazing. I've heard from so many of you who've gone to your local supermarket, you're looking for it, your local beverage store, you're looking for it, and if you're not seeing it, because this is a beverage that's becoming more well-known by the day, the week, the month, if you're not seeing it, you're asking for it. And we're hearing great stories of it being stocked on shelves in places where it maybe wasn't before. And all of this is a great way to not just support us here at DawgNation, which I certainly appreciate, but to support a great company that's making and growing its product right here in Georgia. If you love beautiful Blue Ridge, Georgia, and of course you do, you love Mercier Orchards there in Blue Ridge, Georgia. More than 200 acres of apples grown right there in the rolling hills, surrounded by the mountains. It's one of the most picturesque scenes you'll ever see. And it's from those apples and the fruits grown at Mercier Orchards that the Mercier Orchards Hard Cider becomes available. So you can look for it at a can wherever you're doing your shopping. If you're at a restaurant, you may see it on tap. Wonderful collection of varieties, incredible flavor, whether it's the just peachy. There are so many fun varieties and flavors for you to enjoy when it comes to Mercier Orchards Hard Cider. So I hope you'll try some today. And in fact, you can find it online. It's mercier-orchards.com/hard cider. That's mercier-orchards.com/hard cider. Of course, Mercier is spelled MERCIER. Mercier Orchards Hard Cider, grown fresh right there in Blue Ridge, Georgia. Available wherever you're looking for your beverages, supermarkets, beverage stores, and in some cases in restaurants on tap as well. Make sure you look for Mercier Orchards Hard Cider today. We appreciate them being a part of Around the Doghouse. We appreciate all of you being with us here today as well. DawgNation Daily presented by ServPro, live here from the Surcheros in Alpharetta. Fun show for us rolls on as we get ready to welcome in the former great Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm here today for a Kroger Fresh Take on DawgNation Daily.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
Always great to have the great former Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm here, support of a Kroger Fresh Take. A little earlier in the show on a Tuesday than we sometimes do, but no less thrilled to be able to do this. Jake, we have reached game week. I know you, as a player, but also a fan, you love the sport as much as we do. Off-season's fun because we like summer things, but there is nothing like the experience of being back in Athens, and for the do that on Saturday, I know you're as excited and happy about that as we all are.
Man, absolutely pumped. Week one is here, finally, thank goodness. I was listening to your show this morning, actually on the road, and what you said about a little bit of a chill in the air, man. The weather is already feeling better. Fall is finally upon us, and cannot wait to see the Dogs play on Saturday, man. It's going to be awesome.
No, I love it. I'm excited about that. I think that's well said. And one of the things I think about a lot is something you told us, I think it's a couple of years ago now, and this is the sort of thing that you would only, I think, fully understand if you have been in this spot and done this as a Georgia player, which is, okay, for a lot of fans, they think of Marshall as an overmatched opponent. Georgia's nearly a 40-point favorite. Therefore, it's going to be easy for Georgia on Saturday. But for the players that actually play in the game, well, it's supposed to be easy, but the nature of football is never exactly easy. It's a physical contest. There's precision involved in your job, quarterback, the passing game. And you told us that going back to your first year in 2017, you'd started at Notre Dame and you'd done all these things. But coming back home for a home start against, at the time, a lesser opponent, that you were had some butterflies in the stomach about that, because there's this expectation that the Cupgate game is supposed to be easy, and that requires you to go out and dominate, which in any football situation is not always quite as easy as it's cracked up to be. I think that's the kind of thing you would only learn from experience. So, Jake, I wondered if you might go into more detail about that, a story that you've told us before.
Yeah, no doubt about that. That was 2017 at home against Samford, night game. I mean, I could not be more just nervous. I mean, about to absolutely throw up on the sideline in front of everybody. I think we had got the ball first. And then 2018, we play Austin P at home. Dude, I'm just telling you, man, those games always got me because the standard for excellence was so, so high. It's like if you didn't go, 25 for 25 with a 300-yard game and 3 touchdowns, it was like a failure. So for me, man, it's very important to go out and play well, do my job, get over to the sideline, throw my hat, throw the headset on, get to hopefully relax a little bit and get some young guys in there. But, man, those games always got me a little bit, and this is a prime example. Marshall, 39.5-point favorites. This is, in theory, supposed to be a very easy game, and I think Coach Smart would love the opportunity to play a bunch of guys. But I feel for Gunner here in this moment. This is his first start, and he's probably feeling a little bit of pressure to go out and excel. And for him, I think, man, just go out and play it and don't worry about it.
I think that's really interesting. And, one of the things that came up several times with Kirby Smart during his press conference yesterday, and this is one of those things we perceive that what Smart is actually thinking and what he's going to say are two completely different things. Of course, Georgia's going to show respect to its opponent, and that's with good reason. Sometimes these games don't quite go the way they're supposed to. We've seen that for Georgia before. Every now and then, it just doesn't quite work out, and of course, you'd respect your opponent no matter what anyway, but you never quite know with college football. But privately, obviously, Georgia is hoping to build a big lead. It wants to do that in every game. But in a game like this, there is, I think, the thought of, well, you can get more experience for young backups who they've either played very little or in some cases they've never played at all, and that can only help you as the season goes along. Let me ask you, Jake, as someone who's been on the inside with the Georgia program, how much do you think that Georgia is thinking about what it can do to get some snaps for some players and let them be on TV and let them text back home and say, hey, did you see me in the game? How much is Georgia thinking as a part of its game plan about getting other players beyond just the 22 starters into this game on Saturday?
Look, you don't get very many opportunities throughout the season to see and assess what other guys can do. So when the opportunity presents itself, I mean, you best believe it. Coaches are going to take those opportunities to throw some guys out in some situations, see what they can do, especially if they're showing a little bit of hint of promise. Can they do it? Can we trust these guys in this atmosphere with 90,000 plus people in the stadium? So that'll be something to see and watch out for with what, kind of position groups they do that with. You were talking about the running back room. I think that's going to be a lot by committee. I think it's Nate Frazier's room. I think it's Cash on third down, but who kind of evolves is that complementary back there in the backfield. I think that's still up for debate. I think there's a lot in the receiving room that you could make the argument for of who's going to, be those guys. And the quarterback room as well. I think this is Gunner's show. But I think any experience that Coach Smart can get to throw, Puglisi in there, I think is an opportunity that I don't think he can turn down.
Yeah, so let me follow up on that by saying this is one of those things that, of course, Georgia fans love Kirby Smart, but this is one of those things there's always, I think, a divide between fan opinion and coaching behavior because a lot of fans want to make games like the one that Georgia's going to play on Saturday into a glorified G-Day where it's all backups in the second half and you're showcasing all these guys from the recruiting class and it becomes almost like like an all-star showcase of, hey, here's this guy from the class of 2025, and here's this guy that's a redshirt freshman, and here's this, and here's that. And to a certain extent, Georgia doesn't do nearly as much of that as some fans want. I think Georgia's probably more in keeping with most teams on this, which is once you get into the game, Kirby Smart seemingly wants to get out of the game with as little drama as possible and just move on to the next week. So, yes, there will be some experience, but it's not like Ryan Puglisi going to come in and, even if Georgia's up 40-0, play the entire second half and throw it all over the yard, and all the freshmen are going to get 1,000 touches, and every fan's going to see every guy they've ever followed in recruiting. Georgia just doesn't do quite as much of that as some fans want. But I think mostly what Georgia does, at least the best I can tell, is kind of in keeping with what most of the rest of college football does too, which is we'll get some backup, some experience, but at the same time, we don't want to do anything that prolongs this game and turns it into something dramatic in the fourth quarter when we otherwise could just get out of here and go home, get taped up and get healed up and get ready for the next week, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're 90% right, and I 90% agree with you. I hate to disagree with you, BA, but I think in this case, in this scenario, it's slightly different because I think with Tennessee kind of luring there in week 3 on the road, I think there is an incentive to get this first group of offense as many snaps as possible, get Gunner as comfortable as possible. I think fast starts on offense is going to be at an all-time high. It's going to be at a premium. I think at fast starts as a team is going to just be a huge push from Coach Smart. So the starters, they feel the pressure in the room on game day. Hey, I need to go out. I need to take care of my business. So other guys can get in. This is mainly later in the year. To start the year off in week 1 in a game like this, man, for the starters, hey, man, I'm going to go out, and this is a breakout game for me. Let me go make my name. Let me go make my mark. So the opportunities are there, but I do think there's an incentive to get this one group of offense as many reps as possible. I don't think calling the Dawgs off, so to speak, maybe a tad later than normal, because I think there's an operational point on offense where the offense just needs as much experience as it can.
I think it's a great answer, and I think that it's great anytime you want to disagree with me because I'm wrong a lot, and obviously you know a lot, so you're always welcome to do that anytime you want to. We played some fun clips a little earlier of Jordan Hall, and he's got a great personality, and what we didn't play were several instances yesterday where Hall, in talking about his teammates, whether it be defensive linemen or other guys, other positions, about blocking out noise, in particular, whatever criticism might be out there. Now, sometimes we know football players are motivated by proving the haters and the doubters wrong. We hear that plenty. Georgia seemingly likes to do some of that sometimes. But there is also, I would imagine, a huge potential distraction around the fact that people like me are just talking about Georgia football all the time. It's got to be weird being so observed in so many ways every single day. And I would imagine it's easier said than done to block all of that out. So as someone who's also been in that position before, what is it like doing what Jordan Hall says he wants his teammates to do, which is ignore the criticism, ignore the chatter, and exist only in the space of trying to do the job that you're doing? What's that like, Jake?
Yeah, it's much easier said than done. I think it starts with putting the cell phone down. Prime example, man, Stetson Bennett going to the flip phone, man, great idea, absolutely brilliant. Staying off of social media, man, and just focusing on what is most important. And man, that is football. I was talking to a couple buddies earlier, and I'm kind of discussing the transition of life I'm in and real job. I'm like, man, I kind of miss the simplicity of football, right? You got to respect it, whether it's good or bad, but nothing else in the world matters but football. There's 100+ people in your organization, and all that matters is who you're playing that week and winning that football game. So, man, it is easier said than done. I think you can do it, and when you're around the right group of guys and the right program and the right guy at the top feeding all this stuff down through the channels, and it can be done.
I think that's really interesting. I've got one more topic I want to hit with you before we're done. Let me remind folks, though, this is a Kroger Fresh Take with Jake Fromm here today on DawgNation Daily. And speaking of our friends at Kroger, many of you know we have an amazing DawgNation invasion coming up. Jake mentioned this, the big game in just a couple of weeks now for Georgia against Tennessee. Well, obviously a big game like that means that DawgNation wants to be at its best. That's our DawgNation invasion. Paddle wheel riverboat on the Tennessee River. Incredible experience. Tickets are going fast. I do believe we still have some. If you go to DawgNation.com/tailgate, you can learn more about our DawgNation Invasion, the Tennessee River. Secure your ticket while you can. A DawgNation Invasion T-shirt, if we still have those while supplies last. Got to act fast on that to be able to do that. It's the buffet on the boat. It's the beverages. We're going up and down the Tennessee River for a couple hours. It's a great experience. Well, here's something else you need to know, that our friends at Kroger also want to give away a chance for you to win your way onto the DawgNation Invasion. This is going to be an unbelievable experience for you right now, courtesy of our friends at Kroger. 2 tickets to the DawgNation Invasion, and here's how you enter for this. Just go to the DawgNation contest page, and you can have your chance to win this between now and September 1st. So you got to act quickly to do this. It's the DawgNation contest page. If you go to DawgNation.com, it's easy to find. DawgNation.com/contest. DawgNation.com/contest. You can register for your chance to win. A lucky winner going to get 2 passes on board the DawgNation Invasion riverboat that day to enjoy an incredible tailgate experience, courtesy of our friends at Kroger. Check out DawgNation.com/contest for more on that. That is DawgNation.com/contest for more on that today. I hope you'll check that out. All right, Jake, so before we get to the big game for Georgia and Tennessee, obviously some Week 1 action, and I think Georgia Marshall, not necessarily a great example of this, but for me, this is one of the most anticipated season opening weeks I can ever remember. Great games. Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame, up and down the list you could go. I'm curious from your perspective, is there one of these games that you're more interested in than any other? I just can't wait to consume as much of it as I possibly can. But is there one that's on your mind more than anything else?
I got 2. The first one is a bandwagon pick about Texas. Like, is Texas for real? I feel like the weight of the world is on Arch Manning's shoulders. Can he meet to the level of expectations that everybody wants for him? If anybody can do it, I think it would be Manning. But that one's going to be very, very interesting to watch. And I think Notre Dame and Miami is an interesting game as well to keep up with. Obviously, Carson Beck is there. Drew Butler mentioned it on our podcast last night. I mean, Carson had UCL surgery not 8 months ago. Like, that's kind of a big deal. Is his arm weaker? Is his arm stronger? A lot of baseball guys come back and, they were a 95 guy before, and now they're a 98, 100 guy. So his arm could be stronger. What is Notre Dame? Notre Dame seems to have a really, really good football team into this year, but can the quarterback position take them to the promised land? So I think those 2 games are going to be very, very fun to watch.
I think that's really well said, Jake. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great weekend of football. And, of course, I'll look forward to getting to your reaction to it here very soon as part of a Kroger Fresh Take. Thanks for your time here today. We'll look forward to talking to you very soon. And just thanks for being here on DawgNation Daily.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. See you next week.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
So coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to get more into some of the games that Jake was just mentioning. Yesterday we talked a lot about LSU and Clemson and Texas and Ohio State. We're going to get into some of the others here today of note. That's coming up here in just a little bit to kind of look at an incredibly deep Week 1 around college football. I think it's really exciting. We're going to get to that here coming up in just a moment. But prior to that, let me remind you, we are cruising around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean. And it has been so much fun to hear folks talk about the great new experience that everyone's having on Star of the Seas, the newest in the Icon class of ships. And obviously the size of a ship like Star of the Seas, an Icon before it, the largest cruise ship in the world when it was built, Icon of the Seas, you can't help but notice that. But one of the things that I think makes Star of the Seas so much fun, and Icon before it, are the new neighborhoods that are introduced because of the really creative design. For instance, on a ship like Utopia of the Seas, which we love, the Aqua Theater is on the back of the ship. That's where that exists. It's where you see the high diving show. Well, on Star of the Seas, you've taken that wonderful live venue, the Aqua Theater, and you've kind of put it in the center of the ship, it's now known as an aqua dome, which creates space in the back of the ship for the Infinity Edge pool for the adults and all of the things that they get to enjoy. All of that is such a wonderful, incredible experience. You're going to love Star of the Seas. So I hope you'll reach out and plan your vacation today as you're thinking about the end of 2025, early 2026. Frankly, it's not too soon to start thinking about cruise travel this time a year from now, next spring, next summer. Great chance for you to be on board Star of the Seas. Jessica Slater wants to tell you all about it. You can give her a call, 770-718-9147. That's 770-718-9147. You can also email her, jslater@dreamvacations.com. Enjoy a great experience on board Star of the Seas here today. Okay, so let's get ready to go cruise around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean here right now, and let's get ready to talk about so much of the incredible things that are happening around the SEC with the big week one getting ready to take place here. And we talked, as I said, we did a lot of Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson yesterday. Let me hit a couple of these other games just for a moment. And Jake mentions the Miami-Notre Dame game. Here is something that I have to admit about this game. Clearly there's a fixation on Carson Beck for this. Of course that's true. And I think that Jake brings up some interesting points of coming off the injury, how healthy he's going to be. There is an extent to which some of this feels like some of the same conversation around DJ Lagway, which is Lagway just has not practiced very much for Florida, but so much of the Gators' season hopes rest on Lagway's shoulders, and one of those shoulders is injured. So how well set up are they for success? I feel sort of the same way about some of the Carson Beck stuff in that he has been really injured to the point where not a participant in spring practice. We're told that he's healthy now. Clearly there's going to be sports fans speak in the language of comparisons. That's just the way that goes. There is going to be an ongoing comparison between what Carson Beck does at Miami, what Gunnar Stockton does at Georgia. That is an inevitable fact. It's just going to happen. We're not going to necessarily further that or push that to be true. We're not going to make more of that than it needs to be. Frankly, there's nothing we can do to subdue it, though. It's just going to be one of those conversations that happens. I've also got my eye on Alabama and Florida State here on Saturday. In the previous Alabama era, when Nick Saban was coach, this is one of those things that Alabama always did well. They played the non-conference week one opponent, frequently was a neutral site game, but it was always the big non-conference opponent week one, and it was always sheer domination. In fact, at least one of those years, was against Florida State. In so many ways, this is now Kalen DeBoer's program, and we're, I think, all curious to see how much of a downgrade is that? How much of a drop-off is there between what DeBoer is now and what Saban was before? Well, how you play against a non-conference opponent in week one is a pretty strong barometer of that one way or another. I'll be honest, when I look at Florida State, I don't see very much going on with that program right now. I know Tommy Castellanos at one point in time has had some big talk about Florida State winning this game. I don't think many of us expect that to be true. Alabama ranks as about a 14-point favorite right now, but in previous Alabama fashion, they would cover that number easily. They might win a game like this by 5 touchdowns, not just a couple. Is that still what Alabama is capable of doing in the Kalen DeBoer era? We're going to find out on Saturday more about that. I'll also mention the Syracuse-Tennessee game. We like Fran Brown. And we'll talk more about these games as the week rolls on. But we like Fran Brown. He's a fun coach. He's had surprising success early at Syracuse. It would certainly be entertaining for a lot of Georgia fans to see him give Tennessee fits on Saturday as they begin a brand new era, the brand new quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, now at UCLA. So we'll see if that's the case. Let me give you a couple of other stories here just for a moment. Big news comes out of South Carolina. Rasul Faison is a running back you may have heard of. That was a transfer to the Gamecocks from Utah State. This is one of those kind of, I guess you'll say, like a Diego Pavia situation where he had to apply for a waiver to get extra eligibility. And in a previous iteration of the NCAA, that wasn't going to happen. But now Diego Pavia goes to court. Some of the guys have won their court case. I think a messy situation for college athletics right now is some that have challenged the extra eligibility have gotten what they sought after, others have not, and that's just created a problem. Well, in the case of Faison, I think a lot of folks around South Carolina thought they might get this easily rubber stamp because Pavia got his eligibility. Well, it's turned out not to be quite so easy, but just before the season begins, Faison has gotten word. South Carolina actually put out a really fun video about this yesterday where they hung his jersey in his locker. That was the signal that he was now eligible. And this is one of the better players in the transfer portal for this previous cycle, or for this previous year, I mean to say. This is one of the top running backs available for a South Carolina team that's already got arguably among the best defensive players in Dylan Stewart, among the best quarterbacks in Lenora Sellers. Adding a running back like Faison that's a pretty big add for South Carolina. Pretty big add for sure. That's a talented team that would appear to have gotten more talented. I'll also mention, just for completion's sake, Kentucky has now announced its starting quarterback, believe it or not, Zach Calzada, who's been class of 2019, I think Calzada's in the 2019 class, still in college football, announced as a Kentucky starter. I'll let you read into what does it mean that they've waited this long to announce him as the starter when he had far more experience than anybody else in the room, but that was official. We have a sneaking suspicion that Kentucky might be among the very worst teams in the SEC this season. It certainly seems like Mark Stoops is kind of on his way out, either by choice or by force. Kentucky fans seem to be ready for something new, too. Seems like there is an end of an era upon us, and maybe this year is the year where it kind of all falls apart. We'll see. Kentucky has a history of giving Georgia fits, so that may still be true this year. But beyond that, how many games they're winning, I'm not quite so sure. But either way, we'll make that cruising around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean. Of course, we've had a great time today at the Surcheros in Alpharetta. Folks stopping by to see us, and how about this? You look at the great bowls here. This is just sort of the fresh mix that they're famous for at Surcheros. And I had a chance to experience this myself a little earlier today. One of the things that makes Surcheros so different is when you go through the line for the various items that taste good when they're nice and hot and fresh, well, guess what? They're going to take those items, they're going to put them on the grill for you, grill them up fresh just for you. I had a chance to experience this with a burrito this morning. They took the corn, put the corn on the grill, they grill it up fresh, and that kind of goes to add to the flavor profile of what you're enjoying. In a bowl like this, very much the same way. I mean, you don't get this type of presentation anywhere else, but the friendly folks here at Surcheros have made this a big part of what they do on a regular basis. You love that. Bowls, burritos, quesadillas, tacos, great to experience here at the Alpharetta location or any of the other 40-plus locations across the state and around the southeast. And when you stop by in store, you also get the extra special treat, too, of how about a little margarita here as well. You can't beat that as a part of a Tuesday on the show. That's good. That's very good, actually. We should make margaritas more of a feature as a part of what we do here on DawgNation Daily, especially when we get a chance to be at the Surcheros location here in Alpharetta. But in all seriousness, I want you to think as well, for all of your game day watching needs, you're getting friends over to the house, get a big tailgate coming up in Athens or anywhere else. Think about high school game tailgates. You get folks together for something like that. Doesn't have to be for just Georgia football. We think that's a great time to do it. But anytime you're getting football fans together, they're hungry, they want to be well-fed, but they want to be well-fed with good, fresh food. And that's what Surcheros is all about. So if you go to the Surcheros site, Surcheros.com, that's Surcheros, Surcheros.com, you can find out the location closest to you. You can get your game day party taken care of, your tailgate party taken care of, and you can come in store and have a meal prepared for you fresh right away. In fact, one of our great folks that's part of our chat every day, DT, his daughter stopped by to be here today. So folks are hanging out and enjoying what we're doing here at Surcheros. We certainly appreciate that. And honestly, you had me at hello once you brought the margarita over to the table here too. So we've had a great time. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We're going to hang out and have a lot more fun here as well. But before we do, let's get ready to sign off today. And of course, as we get ready to say goodbye, we have an absolutely amazing golden shoe that I want to show you here today. I'm really proud of this. I always say that our audience is amazing with just how well traveled they are, folks that are all over the place and getting a chance to see great things. Well, how about this? I got an email. Guy writes in to say, hey, Brandon, my wife and I recently had a chance to visit the Galapagos Islands, and I had these photos basically taken in a lava field there in the Galapagos, and showing off, just a very impressive array of Georgia-themed tattoos, beautiful artwork on this, incredible stuff. And he said he's added the dates after the 2021 national title, and he's also got some space left for future national championships, which you love. His name's Glenn Bosshart. He shared this with me, and he said that if he gets a golden shoe today, he's going to get a golden shoe tattoo. Well, you better believe I was excited about that. So to Glenn, first of all, your tattoos, your art's golden shoe worthy as it is. We're jealous of you of such a fantastic trip going to the Galapagos. Must be absolutely amazing. So we'll give you a golden shoe just for that. But you know what? A golden shoe tattoo, that'd be a pretty cool thing to see as well. So thanks for sharing that, Glenn, and to all of you who share your really cool and interesting tattoos and travels and all the things you have going on. We certainly appreciate that. Well-earned golden shoe indeed. Now, how about those lousy, stinking Gators? It's been a long time since Florida has beaten Georgia. We remind you of that every single day. We love reminding them of that. It's our Gator Hater Updater. How about 1,753 days? That's how long it's been since Florida's beaten Georgia. That's our Gator Hater Updater. Y'all, come on back. We'll see you tomorrow from our friendly confines of our DawgNation World Headquarters studio. Thanks for being with us here today from the Surcheros in Alpharetta on DawgNation Daily, presented by ServPro. See you tomorrow, everybody. And on video, time now for the R.S. Andrews Cool Down. R.S. Andrews, the one you turn to for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. They show up on time. They do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. You can trust them on all of that. So, yeah, the great DT, he's almost always with us in our DawgNation chat. His daughter's here today taking care of DT. So do you live in Alpharetta?
I do, 5 minutes away.
So just 5 minutes away, stopping by to be here and be a part of this. And, of course, we always appreciate all the folks that are part of our chat each and every day. That's always a lot of fun, and DT's certainly one of our favorites.
Moving to Dallas, so shout out to UGA Marine.
Okay, so in our DawgNation chat, the various chats, many of you know this, have their own personalities and their own groups that form with that. And so one of the guys that's also in our UGA chat as well, we call him UGA Marine, who, as many of you know, lives in the Texas area, lives in Texas, in the Dallas area, I mean to say. And so DT's daughter is getting ready to move out to Texas. And so I think DT and UGA Marine have formed a little bit of a bond around that shared story. And they're also just good folks, good Georgia football talk. So shout out to UGA Marine, to DT, and everybody else that's a part of our DawgNation chat. That's really fun. I'm going to start on Facebook today with apologies. I should start on DawgNation.com, but I'm going to start on Facebook today just because I don't do that very much. Ulysses Dunnings says don't pump him up to get a golden shoe tattoo. I told him I'd give him a golden shoe anyway. Just getting the cool Georgia ink and visiting the Galapagos. We do a lot of travel-themed golden shoes anyway, just because I think it's fun that y'all all visit these cool and interesting places, something I don't get to do very much. So I'll give you a golden shoe just for that. But if you want to get the golden shoe tattoo, I would certainly wouldn't mind seeing that too. That's pretty fun. All right, yeah, come on over here. So this is DT's daughter. We're going to picture here right now as we're doing the R.S. Andrews cool down. Perfect to be able to do that. That's a great thing to be able to see. That's wonderful. And by the way, if you come see us at the UGA bookstore and you want to say hello like that, we'll do the same thing. We are very casual. We are very laid back. This is not, we're not curing diseases here. We're just hanging out and having a good time. So if you want to come up and say hello and talk, that is not a big deal. Now, for right in the middle of the show, that's a little bit of a different thing. But the cool down is a more of a relaxed cadence. So for sure. By the way, Marshall Fleming checks in, speaking of Texas, saying, I don't like Texas, but I hate Ohio State, worse than even Florida. If Ohio State beats Texas, all you're going to hear in every sport is the SEC's horrible. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I have a lot of SEC pride. That's a big thing that I have. But my pride extends to what I think of as the heritage SEC. I have pride for heritage SEC members. Texas, if I'm being honest, doesn't do anything to unearth any sense of my SEC pride, not in any way, form, or fashion. Let's see what else. Jess Anderson asking about, excuse me, I got choked up, DeMello Jones. So what I have heard is, it certainly seems like on the basis of the chatter, that Ellis Robinson is probably ahead of DeMello Jones. But that doesn't, I don't think anyway, necessarily mean anything bad for DeMello Jones. I think that DeMello Jones is right in line for playing time. Keep in mind, for DeMello, whether that playing time comes in substantial form this season or not, we're still talking about a guy that's only going into year 2 for the program. That cornerback is a spot in which experience greatly matters. Who we believe Georgia's lead cornerback to be this year, Dalen Everett, is a perfect example of that. Everett has clearly gotten better as he's been more experienced in the Georgia program, has clearly benefited from that experience. So I wouldn't in any way get impatient about DeMello Jones. As of now, maybe Ellis Robinson is ahead of DeMello. A year ago at this time, I don't know if that was necessarily true, but it may be true right now. But I don't think that necessarily speaks to anything. If it is true, I don't think that necessarily means anything negative about DeMello Jones necessarily. Good question. Jacob O'Neill says, hand me that food, BA. You're letting it get cold. Yeah, it looks good, first of all. Second of all, the one thing I'm very aware of, and I have a lot of faults. One of the things I try not to do is I try not to eat on air. I would obviously love to do that, love to just dive into the whole thing. I try not to eat on air because, A, it doesn't sound good. Also, I'm not a very graceful eater. I like to just sort of dive in, and that's not the most elegant, graceful appearance. So for both your ears, not to hear me go, and just for the lack of elegance with which I would probably eat, I'm going to save you from that right now. Brian Whitaker says he hopes to see both Ellis and DeMello on the field this year. Maybe that will happen. I'll check in over at DawgNation.com here right now. Randy Hall says, what are you eating and drinking? So this cup, that's actually true, honestly true to form. That's Dr. Pepper from the wonderful fountain right over here at Surcheros. This is a margarita. This is a delicious bowl. Now, this morning, circa 8:45 or so, I had some queso. And I got to tell you something. That was delicious. I believe it's a new record for me. That may be, I'm tracing the recesses of my brain right now. That may be the earliest I've ever eaten queso. I would eat it even earlier than that if I could. I'm never turning down queso. This was delicious, hot and fresh queso, like anything else around here. That was great. So I've already had a good bit of queso this morning and the delicious tortilla chips to go along with that. Senior Dog 54 shouting out Thomasville's Hurston Waltrip going for 5-0 record tonight for the Braves. One of the few bright spots for the Braves this year. Yeah, it's been quite a run for Thomasville, too. First of all, Thomas County Central is a great team right now, among the best in the state, Georgia high school football. The recent U.S. amateur winner, also a Thomasville native, and what Waltrip's doing for the Braves. These are all really good things right now for that corner of the state. Also, our good friend and colleague, Caitlin from DawgNation, who you don't see on camera very much, but you used to. She was one of the first people to ever be on video for DawgNation many, many years ago. She is a Thomasville native, so I know she's very proud of all this, too. Garrison Tucker says he thinks that Sark's got a lot to lose if he fumbles the Ohio State game. Well, I'll rack what we said yesterday. To me, the referendum on this game is not so much the team that loses it. If Texas loses, I think that puts the media in the spotlight. Paul Feinbaum saying that Arch Manning is already better than Tim Tebow. The Athletic saying that Texas is already the new Alabama. All this is very presumptuous. Very presumptuous. And that, to me, is what ought to be in the spotlight. Always be careful if you're thinking about gambling odds and betting. But from a betting standpoint, I think the loser of this game is actually a pretty interesting team to consider for winning the national championship. I hope it doesn't happen. But the loser of this game is in no way eliminated from the national championship race. The outcome of the game, I would say, is fairly inconsequential to the overall college football playoff race. You're not going to get penalized too much for losing, sort of like Texas at Ohio State or Ohio State to a playoff level team like Texas. But given the way that Texas has been talked about, if Texas were to lose, I don't think that's necessarily as much a problem for Texas as it is for those who did all the talking. I put this on X last night. I think the game is a referendum for the media. Let's see what else. Kent Holcomb, very funny. Yeah, I believe this is our first margarita on DawgNation. Hopefully not the last, but I believe it's our first. And if you're going to have a true R.S. Andrews cool down, this is a great way to cool down. I can promise you. If Dari from R.S. Andrews was here, he'd have a margarita. I know that for a fact. UGA Marine says the pictures with his daughter turned out really well. It's great to meet her. It's fun. I am oftentimes as interested in some of you as you are, and you hear these names and you don't always get a chance to meet the faces. But great to meet DT's daughter today. That was great. Randy Hall, will I be in Athens on Thursday night? I will be. I am going to be doing the big event with the Red and Black at Authentic Brewing. I'm excited about that. Kayla Myers says, if someone told you the Dogs average 200 rushing yards per game, what would you assume? Would you lock that in? I'll take that in a heartbeat. If Georgia averages 200 yards per game, because keep in mind, one of the things that running the ball correlates with is winning. It's not just that running teams win, it's that winning teams run. Part of the reason that Georgia's rushing yards were so depressed a year ago, Georgia wasn't winning very much. Georgia abandoned the run in games they had big deficits. They had to. The circumstance of the game just dictated that they must. So if you were to really have the power to wave a magic wand and suddenly Georgia's averaging 200 yards rushing per game, that tells me more than just the play calling decisions of Georgia. It indicates the circumstances of the game too. That means Georgia must be winning if it's running that much. So yeah, I would take that for plenty of reasons. SEM Dog says, might need to take the food tray and drinks out of BA's reach. Typically speaking, I'm pretty disciplined about stuff like that. I am cognizant of what I do. Now, admittedly, I did take more sips of the Dr. Pepper from the Surcheros cup during the show than maybe I should have when somebody else was talking. That just became a little bit of a reflexive thing. Try not to do too much of that, but yeah, it's all in good fun. Ken Holcomb says a good rushing attack and a strong defense will get the W most of the time. I believe that's true. All right, we're going to do a few YouTube comments, and then we're going to bounce out of here for today because I'm going to enjoy some of the great food here at Surcheros. So on YouTube, just for a moment, are y'all fighting over here today? Sounds like it. Frank Patterson says, I'm going to try to come to the Kentucky game. Got to drop off a James Cook jersey to G. Grace's son, so I may be a little late to the post-game bookstore show. Frankie, I hope to see you there. Appreciate your support of Georgia football, of what we do here, and I know it's a big trip for you coming up from South Florida, but I certainly would love to see you there for that game, and hopefully that'll be a good day for Georgia. Mark Hubbard says, how will Carson do in Miami? I don't know. I think the big issue going against Carson is, if we're honest, he got hurt last year by a good number of drops by Georgia receivers. Well, Miami is a totally different team when it comes to its pass-catching core than it was a year ago. I think the top 6 receivers from Miami last season are all gone now. I think that's a big consideration. So I could see them winning against Notre Dame on Saturday or Sunday. I could see that happening. But I don't have Miami as a – they could win the the ACC, so if they do that, they're going to make the playoff. But if you think about Miami being a top 10 level team and a playoff at large level team, I don't quite have Miami in that category right now. Could be wrong. I don't have them in that category. Chris asking about Jay Lamar. I know he was a little banged up. I actually am just kind of getting into some of that with Colquitt County, so I don't know where things stand with Lamar right now. I am certainly, and this is self-serving because it's our game on TV, I'm certainly hopeful he's back and playing because I want to showcase him on our broadcast, but I don't know that for sure. We'll see what kind of information I can get. We'll see what kind of information I'm authorized to give, and I'll try to tell you as much as I can about that as we go through that. Let's see what else. Thomas Tyson says anybody focusing on coordinators when pass protection, run blocking, and leading the nation in drop passes with the main issue simply doesn't know ball. I would say in particular, Georgia's inability to get those, what we think of as hard yards between the tackle, I do think that changed a lot of the Georgia play calling a year ago. I really do. And when I say stuff like that, some people think I'm making an excuse for Mike Bobo. I think I'm probably just giving a reason. You can decide for yourself if you think it's an excuse. I like the results for Georgia offensively in 2023. Wish they would have scored more points against Alabama that season. I don't deny that. But the results overall for that season, I like what Georgia did. I did. And I have every reason to believe that they can be an improved offense this season. As I've hinted at a little bit over the last few weeks, I don't think every single open issue for Georgia is going to be resolved in the affirmative. All of the things you're hoping for, I don't know that they all break in Georgia's direction. Running game, offensive line, upgraded wide receiver, better against the run defensively. I think if there are 5 of them, you hope that you get 3 positives and 2 not quite so muches. That's about the best batting average you're going to get. But of those, what we think of as open issues, I think it's reasonable that at least 3 of those could work out pretty good in Georgia's favor. And if that's the case, there's plenty of reason to believe this Georgia team could be better than last year's Georgia team, even though it won the SEC and even though it made the college football playoff. Couple of final comments. Jerry Dog fan asking about the game on Friday. So, yeah, we'll have it. Atlanta News First. It's also on Peachtree Sports Network. If you've got cable, YouTube TV, Peachtree Sports Network is on in South Georgia. And you can watch anywhere on the Atlanta News First app. So streaming with them or on the app, and we'll make sure we give you plenty of information about how you get access to that. But Atlanta News First is in Atlanta, what we think of as Channel 46. So that's the channel that it's on, Channel 46, Atlanta News First. And if you're not in Atlanta, or if you don't have like cable, YouTube TV, they all have Peachtree Sports Network, so you can watch it on there. But you can stream it. It's a good quality stream anywhere using Atlanta News First. Final comments. Trevor Maffetone, very funny stuff. Tyler Puglisi says, I got the deck and backyard decorated and ready to go for this weekend. Got my newborn daughter a nice Georgia onesie. Looking forward to rooting for the Dogs from up here in New Jersey. Boy, what a great scene that is to picture. An incredible situation. And I've seen your pictures. You've shared with them before, I believe. Love seeing the Georgia fans getting that next generation ready to go. Love the really decked out backyards and basements and all the place that Georgia fans get together to watch Georgia football. And I hope that you're all getting ready for a wonderful, wonderful 2025 season. Each day this week, we'll do our part to get you ready for it. Of course, as we've been here today at Surcheros, I want to remind you to think about Surcheros for all your game day watching, party needs, your tailgate party needs. The fresh mix they're famous for, they can have it delivered to you, or you can come pick it up and you can feed all those folks in your life. The bowls, the burritos, the quesadillas, the tacos, so much more. Our friends at Surcheros have got it ready for you. Also, thank you to R.S. Andrews, who makes the R.S. Andrews Cool Down possible. Don't forget, Go With the Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews, returns this week. That'll be airing Friday on the DawgNation video channels. But for now, air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric, all of those are great resources for you to consider R.S. Andrews for, including if your water heater goes out or you have some other plumbing emergency. Our friends at R.S. Andrews, the R.S. stands for rapid service. They're going to show up quickly, and in many cases, let's say it's your water heater, they can replace it for you the same day. So find them online, rsandrews.com. Have a great day. Thank you so much to our friends at Surcheros for extending great hospitality for us. You better believe if you've got a cold margarita in hand, you've had some tremendous hospitality. We certainly appreciate that. We'll see you back here tomorrow for our R.S. Andrews Cool Down. Of course, DawgNation Daily, presented by ServPro. We'll talk to you then, everybody.